Yes, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Wildcard Devy podcast. My name is Phil. I will be doing a lot of the talking this evening because he is Jack and he is sick. Welcome to another episode. Like I say, this episode has a certain Christmassy feel to it. 'Tis the season. Christmas tree is behind me in the background that might just kind of show up every now and again. Listen, we've got to ask him. Jack, how you doing?
I am physically recovering, and I promise I'm not just hiding my voice because of how confident I was going into the game and how embarrassed I am in the fact that Michigan turned over Ohio State a couple of weeks ago. I'm doing all right. How are you? Gloriously happy in the beating of Auburn, but probably less happy with how the college football playoffs have worked out, I would guess.
Yeah, and it's listen, obviously I'm really glad that you addressed the elephant in the room and spoke about the Michigan Ohio State game, so I didn't have to. It may come up later, it may come up at various points this evening. Yeah, obviously I was a lot less enthusiastic about the prospects of the Iron Bowl, the way that Bama had played the week before against against Oklahoma. But we showed little brother who's boss, and you know, showed Kevin Coleman what a real wide receiver room looks like, and yeah, it was a pleasing end to the season. Obviously, Bama. The selection committee chose not to include Bama in the expanded 12-team playoff, which is obviously a hugely subjective decision. One that people can make arguments for and against, but ultimately, if you lose 3 regular season games, you leave yourself in that position. And yes, Bama beat more top 25 ranked opponents than some of the sides that made it in. But if you're going to lose 3 games in the regular season, yeah, you run that risk. Interesting to hear Greg Byrne, Bama's athletic director, talking about maybe when we look at schedules in years coming or years moving forward, we take some of the strength out of the schedule if the win-loss record is going to be the kind of be-all and end-all of how the selections are made, which kind of robs the fans. You can't have it always, I suppose, but yeah, listen, that's not the purpose of tonight. Yeah, it was a disappointing way to end, but we've still got. It means I can watch the playoffs from a completely neutral point of view and enjoy tons of great college football. And get into the Devy side of things.
Yeah, and we will approach the playoffs from a Devy perspective a little bit later. I just find it interesting, some of the conversations, like you say, about weakening the schedule. The problem for Alabama is they won their out-of-conference games, really. It wasn't a out-of-conference issue. It was winning or losing some of those really competitive games in the SEC. But maybe we'll dive into that a little bit later. First up, this is our last episode before December 25th. The Jesus man's birthday is coming. And so, Phil, you and I have managed to craftily send each other Christmas presents, and we thought it would be quite handy to open them on the show for all of our listeners to get very jealous of all the gifts, or maybe just get some ideas for what they're going to get their buddies or their better halves.
Absolutely.
So, Phil, how obvious was it that the parcel that arrived for you was from myself?
Well, I've got the parcel here, still unopened, with a nice Ohio State decal on it. It really makes me anxious that you're going to kick me out in some Ohio State merch. But yeah, I was delighted to receive that when I was up some Christmas ladders on Saturday morning, putting up Christmas lights.
Excellent. No better time to be distracted by the postman than when you're up a ladder doing something very tricky and balancing. Well, I can assure you there is no Ohio State gear inside your parcel. But why don't you take a look? Open it up, and I will chat us through exactly what has been gifted.
Oh, okay.
If you are listening on podcast, this will probably be a time to check the video stream on YouTube or X because
okay. Let me see.
We can only tell such a good story with words.
Look at that bad boy.
Here we had to stay true to who you truly love, and that is a pretty throwback, cool Crimson Tide sweatshirt, if I do say so. Well, enjoy
beautiful. Oh,
that.
there's
I hope
something
that
else in there.
fits you
Something I've
well.
just dropped.
Now there is something
Oh,
else in there,
oh.
and this is paying homage to Trey Harris, your Devy love. And so when Phil is in the gym, he may well be rocking the Ole Miss Rebels sweatshirt that I have managed to purchase for him. I thought
is
we've
that's a thing of
spoken so
beauty.
much about him. I thought you would really appreciate that, despite him being an SEC rival. Just a little bit of a nod to
Mate,
someone
that's
who's going to be
brilliant.
on all your Devy rosters, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's brilliant, mate. Because like you say, people are going to start to think that all I spend my money on is Alabama gear. So to actually go to the gym in something different is going to be great. And yeah, proud. Proud to say I've repped Trey Harris all year. When he gets really buzzy in dynasty circles, kind of April time. Remember where you heard it first. I'll take that one. And obviously, we're going to talk College Towers shortly, but he was a major part of my run to the College Towers final as well as in a nice, tasty little stack with his QB Jackson Dart. So yeah, absolutely, I shall wear that with pride. Obviously, yeah, thank you very much. So listen, I'm worried that I spoilt your prize. Your present, excuse me, because I made an appearance on social media for the UK Ravens fan group over the last few days, and accidentally wore a matching gift. But yeah, Jack, listen, go for it, go for it.
Let's get. I did see that. I have to say, I did see that video, and I thought, it could be, and if it is one of the coolest presents I think I've ever received. Look at that. We've got our own fancy wildcard merch, courtesy of Mr. Cartledge. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be wearing that hoodie with pride all Christmas long.
Yeah,
honestly, Christmas long.
It was I was trying to think of what to get, and I was like, how do I know what Ohio State gear he's got, what he's not got? My fingers wouldn't let me order anything New England Patriots. So yeah, I was like, right, okay, let's rep the brand. And listen, I've got to shout him out at Mugs NFL on X. Obviously, it makes tons of fantastic custom gear. And yeah, sent him a little message and he hooked us up. So yeah, enjoy, mate. Wear it with pride. Rep the brand.
I absolutely will. I'll have to explain to everybody what it is, but I will absolutely wear it with pride.
Yeah, so everyone who's asked me so far what Devy means, I've just told them it's West Yorkshire for divvy. So yeah, they're not quite sure why I'm wearing a jumper that says Divvy on it, but yeah, it's excellent. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much, mate. I'm buzzing.
And you, Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Now listen, let's talk College Towers. We alluded to it. We closed our last episode by explaining to the good folk that we were facing off in the 2014 College League Fantasy Championship game, and it was close, wasn't it? It was close.
It was. I think it ended up being just the 3 points between us, which surprised me. There's a few auto subs to come in at the end. I had a couple of players who didn't play at all. But yeah, your other Christmas gift was said championship belt.
Yeah, man. It was nervy. Like, so I listen, I'm not going to sit here and like slag off Fantrax, but I have not quite yet mastered the intricacies of their delightful platform. Which is at the moment the only kind of platform that you can play campus to Canton or college fantasy on, for the kind of college fantasy side of it. So I haven't quite mastered all the intricacies. It's awkward. It's a bit clunky, and I have not figured out the auto sub thing all year. So when we got to the morning, the Sunday morning following the Saturday night slate of games, and I'm looking, and I've got a good 60-point lead, and I sent you a message, and you was just like, "Yep, just wait for the auto subs. We'll see how close it is." And I was thinking, no, like how close is this gonna get? And it did get close. Yeah, 3 points. I'll take it. I think it was a good, close, competitive final. I was really nervous when Trey Harris didn't actually play and suit up that weekend. That was a major blow, but Kyle Menenge, Jeremiah Love, and a couple of my running backs kind of saw me over the line. So it was a great experience. It's wet my whistle to I've said I'll look at dipping my toes into a campus to Canton league. Yeah, it has wet my whistle for that side of the ball because I'm not busy enough, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's nice. I think it's nice for you to have won it with a few guys that you've really championed on this show and across our social media platforms as well, like Jeremiah Love and Carl Mungai. And it shows that you can take a Devy approach to college fantasy football because we're still scouting the best players available in college football. So yeah, if anybody else is interested in dipping their toe into college fantasy football or campus to Canton leagues, hit us up on the socials or your comments on YouTube. We would love to run some listener leagues next season. That'd be a lot of fun. I would really enjoy getting more people involved, and it really is like open for anyone and everyone. It's a lot of fun, and it broadens your awareness of certain sleeper picks in particular for your Devy leagues too.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, listen, that's enough of us talking about what we've been doing and gracing each other with gifts. Let's talk to the people about what's been going on in the world of college football, because it has not stopped.
Yeah, and the 2 weeks that we've been away have been so momentous, it feels like, in the world of college football, and the impact on our Devy evaluations and values of certain players has really changed. So we've obviously had conference championship weekend, and the college football playoff committee have announced who is going to be playing who and who is on a bye and all that confusion. And the headline really for me is that Texas falling to Georgia means that the Longhorns don't really have any good wins in my book. They have that victory over Michigan, which obviously is an achievement. Ohio State could not manage to get that one over the line. But apart from that, we're left a little bit wanting for who Texas have beaten. And from a Devy perspective, the main problem I had watching that game against Georgia was Quinn Ewers really struggling in the red zone again. His inability to turn red zone possessions into touchdowns is really hampering Texas. Now, it helps that their defense appears to be very, very good, maybe elite. And so Texas don't have to score 30 points to win every single game. But against Georgia, too many of those drives turned into field goal attempts or turnover on downs. And you just wonder if we're going to see more Arch Manning packages in the playoffs, and what does that mean for Quinn Ewers' Devy stock? Because I am now more concerned, as the SEC championship game underlined, his struggles when the pitch is shortened. Can he get it done?
Yeah, without a doubt. Listen, I think this is now in terms of immediate draft stock for the 2025 class. I don't think Quinn Ewers is going to get the noises that he wants. I think there are still too many deficiencies that show up, and in spite of a stellar supporting cast and an offensive line that can keep him stood up, he's really not kicked on in the manner that we'd hope, especially after a couple of flashes early on in the season. That then begs the question of what happens with Arch, and I think there's only one thing that's going to happen. I think this is Arch's team as of the close of this season, and I think Quinn Ewers will test the transfer portal because I don't see him being happy enough with his draft projections at the moment. There's certainly no way that a team could feel comfortable taking him day one or maybe even day two at the moment, based on what he's put on tape this year.
No, I think whatever happens, you're right. He is not going to be the starting quarterback at Texas next season. And so he does have that choice to make whether he wants to go to the NFL with, the lack of projection that he wants and try and earn his way into a starting role, a la Will Levis, maybe taken in a second round. The problem is I don't think there's much he can do in the playoffs. For some positions, a playoff run can do a lot for your draft stock in the NFL.
Yeah, without
Quarterback is not one of them, because your catalogue of tape is big enough that people won't disregard what you do in the playoffs, but they will keep in mind that this is a shortened season. Effectively, like, you get some time to recover and get healthy. You've got 2, 3, 4 games, dependent on where you sit in the bracket. And I don't think Quinn Ewers has the capability to take Texas all the way right now. And if Texas get there, it's not going to be because of him. But say he did put them on his shoulders and get them to a national championship, I still don't think that elevates his draft stock, because he's been in college a long time. There's a lot of tape that we have seen, and those niggly little issues haven't improved.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. So tell me then about the quarterback on the other side of the SEC championship game. Tell me what you saw from Carson Beck.
Yeah, well, Carson Beck has suffered a season-ending injury to his shoulder. There's a few different PCLs, ACLs, some kind of letters involved there. That he has damaged his shoulder, which is obviously a horrendous injury for a quarterback to have, whether that's to your throwing arm or your non-throwing arm. But I believe this is his throwing arm. And he's been on a downward spiral this season. We were so confident, and this is something that I, in particular, called wrong, thinking that he was the safest first-round quarterback in the upcoming draft class. I didn't think he'd be a top 5 pick, but I did think he'd be a first-round quarterback. And I just don't see how that can materialize, even before the injury, but especially with this injury and however many months it's going to take him to recover. I don't think he's going to be able to test well at the combine if he goes. I really don't know. I think it's all up in the air for Carson Beck, and does he return to Georgia for another year? I don't even know if he can.
I believe so. I believe he's a redshirt sophomore, so he will have a final season. It'll be interesting. What stood out to me was obviously Gunnar Stockton came in, led the Bulldogs forward, but then took a hit of his own and had to take some time on the sideline. His helmet got removed during a play, so he had to go off to the sideline and sit out a play, which is a kind of NCAA rule. And for me, something we've not spoken about with Carson Beck an awful lot, like we've waxed lyrical about some others, is his leadership qualities. Or with one shoulder, one arm, unable to lift his arm and raise it above his head, or even kind of, into a throwing position. He took the hand off. All he had to do was hand it off to Trevor Etienne, who did the rest. But he was out for the game. Like there was no way he should have been in there. But he put, at that moment with the game on the line, he was willing to put it all on the line for his team. And that's something we've not spoken about from him a great deal. I think because he's quite quiet and kind of under the radar. I think that will stand him positively in the light of some who look at those leadership traits as a real desirable. But you're right. I think, again, depending on timelines to get this sorted, it may well be that he comes back again next year.
Yeah, and I think that'll be fun for Georgia. I think their quarterback room isn't in the greatest of shapes right now. They don't seem to trust Gunnar Stockton. I don't know what Jaden Rashada is doing. So this could be good news for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Big Ten championship game. And I was surprised at how high scoring this game was and how competitive Penn State were in, I wouldn't call it a shootout, but in a really high scoring game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've just pummeled a couple of highly rated Devy quarterbacks, and spoken about, kind of their failings at the moment and things they might need to look at. And then one who we've asked questions about routinely, it feels like, is starting to heat up perhaps at just the right time. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from Drew Aller.
Yeah, Drew was really confident. He was really solid in the pocket. And he picked apart the Oregon linebackers really well. He read them all game long and managed to find empty zones in zone coverage. He managed to pick on the cornerbacks when he had one-on-one coverage. And the offense just ran really smoothly. It worked. There was a good balance. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen both ran really well. Nick Singleton in particular had a couple of highlight runs to the outside on a stretch zone, but also was disciplined between the tackles, the A gap, the B gap, even the C gap. You see in that offensive line. And for those that, when you're reading an offensive line, your A gap is down the middle, your B gap is between the guards, and your C gap is around the outside. And he was really disciplined. He had good vision, and he showed the burst that we know about. And he took a few plays, a few handoffs for like did he have a 70-yard run at one point in the game?
41 yard. I think 41 was his long.
Yeah, giving him too much of an ego boost.
But look, like you said, they were playing the darlings of college football at the moment, and the ones to beat. Let's tell it how it is. They're the ones that have got to be beaten, Oregon. And Drew Aller, he was 20 of 39, 226 yards passing, with 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And you might kind of look at that and go, oh, well, they're not the most amazing numbers, just above 50%. 3 TDs to 2 interceptions, but it was what he did around that and how he led them and kept them in the game. Games like championship games, I think you can kind of take the box score and throw it out the window to a certain extent, because the games have ebbs and flows in them that are different to a lot of other games. And Allah kept them in it and kept them competitive all the way to the end. Give him his flowers. Nicholas Singleton, you already mentioned, 10 carries, 105 yards. He had another 4 catches for 43 yards, showing those PPR chops that we have wanted to see. It really feels like he was kind of let off the leash a little bit. And again, Katron Allen maybe didn't kick on as much as I wanted him to this year. I'm definitely guilty of overdrafting him in places. But I know he will be a serviceable rotational piece on an NFL team, which means he's fine on my dynasty roster. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while, I suppose. But he had 14 carries for $124 and 1 score as well. So it was a nice kind of all-round effort from Penn State. And you're right, they certainly showed plenty. It's, again, we don't talk enough about tight ends, but Tyler Warren doing more things. He's going to be the hot, buzzy name come draft time. Again, one to look at with depleted rookie picks. Because I don't know many Devy leagues where he was taken. In fact, I don't think I know any where he's been taken. So yeah, wheels up for Penn State. They're starting to play a more, dare I say, attractive brand that we kind of wanted to see what these guys were made of. And yeah, fair play. And I just feel like going back to Drew Aller with the questions around some of these other quarterbacks right now. He seems to be making a push. Like, he's always had the physical traits, but now he's putting the tape with it. Is QB3, QB4 out of the question for Drew Aller?
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I feel like I have gained much more confidence in my Drew Aller shares as the season has gone on. It's been quiet reassurance, but he has grown and solidified his status, I would say. And yeah, Penn State are getting hot at the right time. And this is an example of a quarterback who really can use the playoffs to his advantage in terms of his draft stock if he does want to go to the NFL this season, because he's going to be in the limelight a little bit more than he has been so far. I feel like Penn State get the limelight when they play Ohio State and Michigan, and they tend to be trench war battles, those two, very close, tight games, and Penn State don't come out on top. So Drew Aller potentially painted with the brush of not being able to get it done, although I feel like his coach, James Franklin, probably takes the main stroke from that brush. But we'll see what can happen in the playoffs. And the other good thing for Penn State is their defense kind of stepped up, which feels ridiculous when they conceded 40 plus points. But they put their number one cornerback, whose name escapes me as of right now, on Evan Stewart all day. And Evan Stewart had 0 receptions. Zero.
Yeah, man.
How concerned should we be about that? And how excited should we be about how lit Tez Johnson went?
Yeah. So, yeah, the in one hand taketh, the other hand giveth. Like, yeah, Evan Stewart getting shut out shouldn't concern you overly. Like, I think we are now fairly satisfied that he is not going to get first round draft capital. And that he will be a complementary kind of second receiver wherever he ends up next year. And I feel like the tape you've seen of him doing that job should be enough. I thought it was interesting, that he was the one Penn State opted to shut down. That tells you something in terms of the game plan and the game prep. And yeah, like I said, I don't think it's harming his draft stock because I think he was out of that first round conversation anyway. He's going to make it to the league. He's going to be a player on Sundays. I just wonder now if he, as far as your Devy shares, if you play in leagues with more casual watchers, whether now's the time to get out on him. Is now the time to get out before these questions get asked in the kind of mainstream media in the run up to the draft? Because, yeah, I feel like on name value alone, you could still get a good return for him. Not saying that he won't contribute at the next level, he could be fine, but you might be able to sell high now, or certainly higher now than you will be come draft time.
Yeah, I saw a mock draft, very early mock draft, this morning where he was still being taken or projected to be drafted as a top 15 pick. So that name value is still, still clearly high amongst NFL draft analysts. I won't name said person just in case we all disagree. But it was really interesting to see that. I definitely agree. It's someone that I am looking to sell right now, but you can make the argument both ways. A complementary receiver in the NFL like T. Higgins or like Devonta Smith, both different style of players to Evan Stewart, but they're still valuable on your dynasty roster. They just have to fit into the right offense. I think that's the real dilemma. If Evan Stewart is drafted to the wrong place, he could be out of the league very quickly.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, like, when you talk about the wrong place, like, and forgive any Raiders fans that I'm about to upset, but Vegas doesn't seem a place I'd particularly want Evan Stewart to go, and that just seems like quite a nice kind of segue into our next discussion point, because you have written here from a kind of NFL point of view that you wanted to have a little chat about Sincere McCormack earning the starting running back role at the Raiders, obviously with a raft of injuries they've suffered to Alexander Mattison and seemingly every other person on their roster. Sincere McCormack has got a little bit of run. So just tell me your line of thinking and a name you might want to look out for in a similar vein this year.
Yeah, so Sincere McCormack has found himself named the starting running back by Antonio Pierce today, which is great news and a real testament for players that work hard and earn a roster spot. Now, I don't feel like the Raiders have assembled a good running back room, so I'm not that surprised that McCormack has risen to the top. I wouldn't have called it at the beginning of the season. However, I do have a vested interest in Sincere McCormack. As we mentioned previously in an episode, he was a running back stud at UTSA, and I actually love him so much. I sent off for his autograph a couple of years ago because someone was running. Someone was going to go meet him and offered for people to send some money as NIL was starting up. So I sent £5 and got myself a Sincere McCormack or autographed photo. And he is just I guess he's the latest rendition of evidence for as many swings at the bat at running back as possible. He's someone that has sat in my taxi squad on a few rosters, especially Campus to Canton ones, which are quite deep. And then he sat at the end of my bench for a few seasons doing nothing. But he has now earned himself a role. And the thinking behind it is he was an incredibly productive college running back. So he racked up yards and touchdowns on the ground, not really through the air for UTSA. And I think that proves there is a path, a narrow one, but there is a path for productive running backs without the typical NFL build or profile to earn a role in the NFL. And so I am delighted that McCormack is now earning himself some carries, hopefully earning himself a second contract. It just gives me optimism for a few college running backs like RJ Harvey out of UCF, someone who's been incredibly productive, is getting a little bit of draft hype. He's declared for the Senior Bowl, I found out today. So unfortunately, he's not coming back to help my college fantasy football teams for another season. But he is someone who has that really good production profile without having the ideal frame or size or speed. But there's a chance that he can carve himself a role in the NFL.
Absolutely. Now, it just makes me think back to the running back episode we did maybe 3 or 4 shows ago, where we both rattled off our top 10 running backs for this incoming draft class. And I think between us, we rattled off 16 names for 10 positions. And there are other names that we didn't mention in there full stop, like RJ Harvey, who are all going to be in and around the NFL draft this year. And it just makes me think, let's talk to our regular dynasty players at the moment who might stumble in and check us out as we're approaching draft season and they want to get the lowdown and start their scouting now. Like, if you are the type of dynasty player who asks for a 4th or 5th on every deal you make, as a throw-in, as a little make-weight here and there, this is the year, if there has ever been a year, to literally use all of those late picks on any running back that's left in that draft pool by that time. If you get to the 4th round and you look and there's a wide receiver you've heard of, and you're looking, take the running back. The running back, because as a position, we see it time and time again, right? That position gets banged up. You've only got to look at the situation now with Sincere McCormack for the Raiders. You've got to look at the situation at the Jets with Breece Hall going down. There is the split between Braylon Allen and his name escapes me, Isaiah Wright. You've only got to look at with CMC going down and Jordan Mason not being available. The combination of Garendo, they've just taken Izzy Abanikanda. There's Patrick Taylor. All these guys, right, hold little to no value, but all of a sudden could turn your 4th or 5th round pick into a 2nd or 3rd round pick if you can sell them at this time of year. Opportunity given to a side that are making a run at a playoff run, whose running back goes down. For me, it's the best way to spend those late round picks, and what a year to do it if you've got them this year.
Absolutely. Isaac Garendo could be a league winner for you. You don't have to trade him away. You can use him this year as you ride the playoffs. And normally I am trying to package up as many late round picks as I can to move up in the draft, especially in a depleted rookie draft. But this year, I'm all on board with your strategy there, Phil. I am keen to sweep up as many running backs as possible this year. The last few years, to be honest, have shown us in the NFL, running backs get banged up real easy, and absolute nobodies who are on practice squads suddenly become starting running backs. So,
Absolutely. All right. Well, the most exciting time of the season then for college football fans is obviously playoff season. But we just wanted to spend a couple of minutes looking at the Devy implications for the college football playoffs. So, Jack, where do you want to start?
I think with the format that we've got, which now I have to kind of bracket this with that I don't believe this format is going to last very long. We won't get into the politics of why and how that will change, but this format has given us more eyes on the group of 5 teams throughout the season, but especially in the playoffs, because of the automatic berth for the best group of 5 champion. We have had conversations about Ashton Junty we've been chatting about him since week 0, but other people have been chatting about him who probably wouldn't know who he was if the playoffs weren't a thing. So a big tick for the expanded playoffs from a Devy perspective is that we are getting eyes on group of 5 players earlier. We're getting more tape, we're getting more analysts having an eye on them, and we're getting more NFL front offices getting a peek of some of those lesser known prospects that we can see boost their draft stock because of this. So Ashton Junty in particular, we're going to see him in the playoffs. Boise State are the number 3 seed, which is rather hilarious. So we're not going to see them until the second round of the playoffs, but we're going to see Ashton Junty play a playoff game in prime time. It will be a standalone game. I don't think any of the quarterfinals are being played simultaneously, so all eyes will be on each game. That is great news for the group of 5, especially if we get a team who get that playoff spot. And it's unlikely that we get more than one in any given year, let's be honest. But if we've got some players on that team that are superstars, we've got a chance to see them and their draft stock get boosted. And, you know, if you already own them, that's great because your profit is going up already.
That's it. It's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, the last time a really unfancied group of 5 team was Cincinnati. It obviously got Desmond Ridder drafted, but the real star of the show in that team was obviously Sauce Gardner, who ended up going 4 to the Jets. And you know, I think the hope, obviously, you know, not from a bitter Alabama fan, but generally for college football with this expanded playoff, is that we see competitive games. We don't want to see anybody get blown out in the manner that Cincinnati did, you know, when they made it, because it's just, it will just bring more questions about the competitive element and the format moving forward. So yeah, I can't wait to watch him. I don't think there's any doubts in his ability. I think Boise are going to continue to ride him. So if you want to see for yourself what he's all about, tune into that game.
Mm-hmm.
What other games have you got your eye on then? And let's look at the first round of the playoffs. Where are your eyes drawn?
I think that the hometown bias is going to say the biggest matchup in there is Ohio State hosting Tennessee in a night game in the shoe. I think they are the two. That's the biggest name matchup, potentially alongside Texas Clemson. In terms of a Devy's perspective, both of those games have a plethora of players that are going to be coming into the NFL this season, which is very exciting. You've got quarterbacks at 3 of those 4 schools. So you've got Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, you've got Quinn Ewers, you've got Cade Klubnik, who are looking to boost draft stock this year or in the future. I'm not sure Will Howard is destined for an NFL starting quarterback role, but he will also be on show. You've got some first round talent at wide receiver and at running back across those games. So they're really exciting from a Devy point of view, as well as just a glorious collision of 4 storied college franchises. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we've also got Notre Dame, who have been quietly
very good.
And the big thing for Notre Dame is that the weather is going to be rubbish. The weather is really going to suit their style of play of running the ball, really good ground defense. That travels across time zones. It travels across weather conditions. I feel like Indiana are in a bit of trouble in this game. So Notre Dame host Indiana. And then the last game in the first round is Penn State at home to SMU. We have a whiteout officially a second whiteout of the season for Penn State. And thank goodness, because the first one was at noon and I can't even remember who it was against. It was a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. We had that Ohio State Penn State game lined up and they weren't able to do the whiteout game for it. So that'll be interesting. I think SMU are going to really struggle with the weather conditions up north. It's really interesting. We've got Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame all hosting first round playoff games. The weather's going to play a factor, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So let's just say the first round, Jack, and heaven forbid, I'm just asking this question purely out of interest, but let's say the first round doesn't go to plan and Tennessee managed to come into Ohio State and take the dub. Could you see yourself following and rooting for Oregon or Penn State the rest of the way as fellow Big Ten teams?
Not on the principle of them being Big Ten teams. I think it would depend who else was left in the bracket. I'm a Brit, so I love an underdog. So if Indiana was still in there or SMU managed to survive, that would be great. Arizona State are really exciting. Obviously, Boise State would also be in the mix in the second round. So there's teams I would prefer, but I really do like Penn State, and I would like James Franklin and particularly Drew Aller to get that monkey off their back of not being able to win a big game. So if they went and played, who would they play in the second round? Boise, and then they'd meet the winner of one of Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, Clemson, Arizona State. You'd assume it'd be Oregon or Texas or Tennessee, one of those three. So yes, maybe, but I'm not going to wave the Big Ten flag, and I don't understand it. And this is a bit of a bee in my bonnet, and you mentioned it earlier in the fact that Alabama didn't make it into the playoffs because they lost 3 games. And if you lose 3 games, unfortunately, you put yourselves at risk of not making the playoffs. Then campaigning about the rest of your conference and becoming an SEC like fanboy or fangirl doesn't make sense to me, because my argument would be, and this is not an accusation at you, Phil.
Absolutely.
I don't understand the waving of the flag so vehemently for the conference. Why aren't you just waving the flag for your team in the conference? If your team is good enough, they will be in the playoffs. They don't leave it to chance with 3 losses.
Yeah, I understand that. I think it's something that a lot of UK fans won't really get, or even NFL teams won't really get, because I feel like your divisional rivals in the NFL become your most loathed rivals that you wouldn't, wish any good luck on. There is not going to be a podcast where you see me saying very nice things about the Browns, Bengals, and Steelers, for example. But yeah, in college it seems to go the other way. You've seen even the head coaches come out. Like Lane Kiffin has been very vocal about the selection process. Kind of regularly discussing like this. I think there's a bias about the work they do in their conference and the standard that the conference drives, rather than rooting for the other teams. I think what they're putting on their back is they're proud of the brand that they've built collectively.
Yeah.
So I think they do look around, and I think you can make the very valid argument that 11 wins in certain divisions, let's say the Big 12 or the ACC, aren't the same as 8-9 wins against on an SEC schedule, where, let's be honest, some of your weaker SEC sides are going to put some of those other teams to the sword. But yeah, I certainly don't think it's the fact that they're actively now willing. I don't think there are many Bama fans sitting at home wishing all of a sudden for nice things to happen to Tennessee and Georgia. But it's more a case of acknowledge the conference we play in, acknowledge what makes the NCAA money. And when you look at some of the biggest teams and the biggest bums on seats and market kind of generators, like a lot of them are in that SEC.
Yeah, that's true. And that argument is totally fair, and I am not in agreement that you are what your record says you are. Like, losing 3 games to top end opposition is different to losing 1 game but playing inferior opposition. And I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, and partly it feels like this is the problem that is going to lead us to a very different college football picture, especially for the college football playoffs, whether that is like 2 mega conferences as the Big Ten and the SEC bring in the most eyes and the most money. We'll see. But my little stick in the spokes of the wheels of the SEC is you have built something. The teams in the SEC have built something. They attract the eyes, but they also attract the money. They receive that money. They get the recruiting pedigree because of it. People go to their schools because they're in the SEC. So you should be winning those games with better recruits.
Absolutely. No, there can be no arguments there. Like I said earlier, even down to the argument about Bama beating more top 25 ranked teams, like those rankings are so subjective all season long anyway. Like, so yeah. Ultimately, don't lose the games, leave nothing to chance. Speaking of a very different landscape for college football, like let's get into our kind of final segment. It is the Christmas season, and we're sat at home late at night scribbling our Christmas wish lists for Father Christmas. College football and schools throughout college football are sat right in their own Christmas wish lists at the moment. That is because the winter transfer portal is officially opening. And there has been so much news that we couldn't possibly fit it all into this section. But we just wanted to hit you with a couple of the major talking points. So Jack, kick us off. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, well, the first thing is, my goodness, the portal's been open 48 hours, and the flooding of players declaring their names in the portal has been obscene. And the portal is open until January 5th, and all you need to do by that date is put your name in. You don't have to have decided where you're going. So we've got plenty of time for more names to join this list. It is going to be a really interesting landscape to see what and where people shake out. But I want to highlight what's going on at USC. It feels a little bit like abandoned ship. So we've seen Miller Moss has entered the portal already, and there's rumors about Missouri. Nothing concrete, but we also have Quentin Joyner, Juice Robinson, both in the portal already. 2 key players for USC this season and in the future. You've got Branch and Mackay Lemon, who could both enter the portal. Lincoln Riley is in a little bit of hot water if these top recruits go, because he also lost his top quarterback recruit a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, Deuce Robinson is going to be a major pickup for somebody. I just because I'm built that way. I watched a little bit of Deuce Robinson tape week before last because I was starting to hear his name buzzing about a little bit more, and I don't watch a great deal of USC, and yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. He could be a major player, and it's really interesting that he's in the portal because there is quite a big team that is going to need some wide receiver help. Obviously, Oregon are likely to lose Tez Johnson, or will lose Tez Johnson. They're going to lose Evan Stewart more than likely, and the depth behind them isn't all that deep. So names like Jonte Cook, Dane Key, Barry and Brown, Deuce Robinson, dare I say my next name, Kevin Concepcion, Micah Hudson. There are some major wide receivers who are all entering the transfer portal. Who do you think best meets Oregon's needs and would help their Devy stock the most by moving to Oregon?
That's a tough one. I'll give you 2. I think Jonte Cook, because of how highly Oregon recruited him originally and the fact they could step into any of those roles, really. His versatility as a receiver helps me well, but also Barry Brown, someone who was a hot name on the Devy circuit 2 seasons ago, is an electric returner in the punt and kickoff game, but also able to fit into that Tez Johnson role, high targets, very versatile. I think both of those guys would be great pickups, but the rumors that I'm hearing at the moment are that Barry Brown is very much wanted at Colorado to fit into that Travis Hunter wide receiver role, which I think he would be incredible at Colorado as the guy, as long as whatever happens at quarterback remains consistent and the defense continues to be rubbish, so they have to throw the ball all the time.
Yeah, man. And again, like you look around, we've just been talking about the SEC. There's going to be a plethora of SEC teams who need need wide receiver help.
Yeah.
Tennessee, Texas, LSU, Texas A&M are all going to be in the market for wide receivers, and like you've already alluded to, have got the money to offer those packages that can recruit some of those top names. One of the names I mentioned a moment ago is Kevin Concepcion. His younger brother, whose name escapes me, it's another KC name, I remember that much, has committed to Kansas State. Kevin Concepcion has been playing at NC State. After an electric freshman season, we started to question some of his usage this year in that NC State team and that system. Quite intriguingly for me, he has been heavily linked with Alabama and has scheduled a multi-day visit there. And I know that a lot of Alabama fans and message boards are saying you do not let him out of Tuscaloosa without a deal, because he is the type of guy who can do that work from the slot and underneath. That will really open things up for Ryan Williams, and they could make a really, really formidable duo. So I'm all eggs in that basket. Rumor is he has cancelled an expected visit to Texas A&M, but that's exactly that at the moment. It's a rumor, and there are that many sources dropping information daily out there, hourly. It feels like it is really, really hard to know what to believe. But I'm certainly pinning my hopes on that one. Is there one that you're pinning your hopes on, Jack? Maybe someone that Ohio State are interested in?
Well, we said Micah Hudson is in the transfer portal, and Texas Tech have really fumbled their highest ever wide receiver recruit. And the rumors tend to be Ohio State or Texas A&M. Now, I'm not sure Ohio State is where he should go for his Devy perspective. That feels wrong to say, because Brian Hartline is an excellent wide receiver coach, but that is a wide receiver room that has a top dog in Jeremiah Smith. It has Carnell Tate, and it has a plethora of other 4- and 5-star recruits in the mix. But going to Texas A&M could be really beneficial for Hudson. He gets to stay in Texas, stay in state. He gets to go in and probably be the number 1 receiver. But, we said that about him going to Texas Tech at the beginning of the season. So we'll see. So that one is certainly interesting because of the recruiting pedigree. The one that I am really interested in from a lesser known guy is Eric Singleton, the Georgia Tech wide receiver. Big-bodied guy, someone who could really flourish as an alpha receiver on the outside. Well, not that he can. He has done. He has shown us that all year. There are rumors that he might also stay in state and go to Georgia. Now, that is a big jump up from Georgia State to Georgia. But if we can see him take over that room, that's a name that might come out of nowhere that a lot of people don't know of, who actually is a really productive, interesting receiver.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Listen, going quickly back to the prospect of wide receivers and Texas A&M, one thing is for certain, they will be playing with a new quarterback, because if we take a quick look at some of the quarterback names that have entered the portal, Connor Weigman, as we said would probably happen earlier in the season, has confirmed he is going to be in the transfer portal. Other QB names of note, Luke Kromenhoek, highly recruited freshman to Florida State this year, is out. Thomas Castellanos has been in the portal since mid-season when he downed tools on the job at BC. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma. Again, much lauded 5-star recruit, has had a roller coaster season. When Oklahoma was struggling, it really felt like at times he was being made the scapegoat, and I don't think the problems were all him necessarily. He came back into the lineup later in the season and looked much improved and could still be a very, very valuable Devy asset if he gets this next move right. Yeah, so some major things going on at the QB as well. One of the other ones that really took me by surprise was Malik Murphy. Now, Malik Murphy is interesting. Obviously, he was back up to Quinn Ewers at Texas and knew his days were up when Arch Manning came in. And he moved to Duke this last season to replace Riley Leonard and has had a good season. So it really, really surprised me when he's entered the portal again, whether that is purely an NIL-based decision, whether it is he's had suggestions that scheme might be changing and is looking for somewhere to best utilize his talents. Who knows? Maybe he just feels like getting himself to a bigger market with more eyes on him might help his draft stock, because he is one. I think I said it about a year ago. I'm interested from a Devy perspective. He's not going to go drafted in Devy leagues, very unlikely, because he's not one of those bigger names. And he's the type of guy who could just slip in, with another good year, slip into that depleted rookie draft gold mine, like in the same way that kind of Michael Penix has. Cam Ward will do in a lot of leagues this year. Jaden Daniels did. Like, there's no reason that Malik Murphy couldn't follow that trend and that pattern. So yeah, that one's interesting to me. Anything else that stands out to you at all, Jack?
We've got to give some tight end love. Tanner Koziel, super efficient target monster at Ball State, is in the transfer portal. I'm not an advocate for spending Devy picks on tight ends very often, but like you say, we've hyped up Tyler Warren all season. He is going to be, if he continues his development, an absolute monster for your team in the NFL. Obviously needs to land in the right place and in the right scheme. Tanner Koziel is in that frame, in that mold, a big receiving threat for Ball State. So his landing spot is really interesting for me. If he can land a big time Power 4 program, that would be great. And then Cal's quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Now, I'm not that interested that he's entered the transfer portal, but I was really intrigued that the links all seem to be with Miami. And obviously we know Cam Ward will be moving on, and that Miami quarterback role is very intriguing. They don't seem to have anyone in the room that's ready to take over next season. So whoever transfers in there, that is interesting to me from a Devy perspective. And if it's Mendoza, who I think is a really efficient, good pocket passer, he's okay. I'd love to see more. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I think I need to see more, but
yeah, my last one on that, and it's interesting that you mentioned Fernando Mendoza because he's a name that was very under recruited. I've got one more to mention, and that's Darian Mensah, who not only has entered the portal to leave Tulane, but has also is the kind of first higher profile name, if you like, to actually commit to his new school, and he's going to go to Duke and follow Malik Murphy. Again, Darian Mensah, underrated, under-recruited, 2-star recruit. He was expected to redshirt this year at the Green Wave and beat out the competition in summer camp and started the year and has played incredibly well. And yeah, him moving to Duke looks like the kind of next step up the ladder for him. So yeah, nice to finish with a couple of names that we don't speak about a great deal, that are wants for deeper leagues to keep an eye on, perhaps. And literally, as we've just been talking, I have SEC notifications from a band of social media outlets set up on my phone, and it has just popped up that Luke Haas, Arkansas tight end, wide receiver, kind of hybrid, much in the mold of those kind of inline pass catchers, has officially entered the transfer portal as well. So that's a nice one to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, we're going to get news every hour of every day for the next few weeks. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears peeled, and then we'll get to do this discussion all over again when we know their landing spot. So there's a lot of fun to come with the transfer portal. However you feel about it, we're diving into the positive, and that is that we get to chat more and more college football.
Absolutely. Well, that just leaves us really, Jack, to thank everyone once again for stopping by and checking us out over at Wildcard Devy. In terms of games to watch, like we normally finish with some games to watch, we know that the playoffs are coming, bowl games are coming. Get your eyes on those draft eligible players. Look beyond that. Look for 26, 27 caliber players that you want to be finding in those next Devy drafts next year. It just leaves us to say that, from us to you, all of you that stop by and check us out, we really appreciate it. We want you to have a safe, happy, healthy Christmas with lots of friends, family, and football. We will be back in early January with much more news on the updates in college football and the college football playoffs. Leaves me to say, if you don't already, you should check us out at Wildcard Devy. You can check out the full squad over at Fantasy Wildcard on X and YouTube. We say it every week, but there is great content dropping almost daily from the entire squad. Jack, listen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for the win, and I'll speak to you soon, buddy.
Merry Christmas. Good night.